We just talked about it last night. We know our roles. We're great each at our roles, and that's why we're an incredible team. I think we're going to go on to do some great things.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And by the way, did you know that you don't have to just listen to these podcasts? I also post every podcast, the video from every podcast, on YouTube, my channel at How Did It Happen podcast. So check it out if that's your thing. I listen to podcasts. I don't really watch them, but I know I'm not like everybody. So if you want to get a look, you want to see what the guest looks like my guest Omar today, you want to see what he looks like, go to YouTube and check it out. So I am fulfilling my promise to you today with another amazing success story. I've got Omar Shaikh on the podcast with me. Omar, welcome to the How Did It Happen podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And I do owe a debt of gratitude to Scott Welch for connecting Omar and I. Scott has been on the show before and has been a great friend to me, and he was kind enough to hook me up with Omar, and here he is. So that's the way
Scott's awesome.
Yeah.
He's got it all figured out.
He does have it all figured out, doesn't he? He sure seems to.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about Omar, and then we're going to get started. So Omar is a Milwaukee business owner and community leader who is well known for his award-winning restaurant, Carnevor, one of the top-rated steakhouses in Wisconsin, and some might say it's the place to be seen or the place to be in the city of Milwaukee. He is also a partner in Wisconsin Ticket Concierge, O&B Consulting, 3rd Street Market Hall at the Avenue, which is a very, very interesting and new development that I'm sure we'll talk about, and Tuk Tuk Chicago, a short-distance electric cab service. I love the Tuk Tuks. I saw them for the first time at St. Lucia. We stayed at a place at St. Lucia, and they drove us around in Tuk Tuks, and it was the coolest thing.
Was it the electric version or it was the traditional tuk-tuks?
I think they were traditional. There was a gas motor on those things.
Yeah.
So Omar has a passion for moving the city of Milwaukee forward through his active involvement in the community. He's served as board chairman of Visit Milwaukee. I think you've just board chairman of Visit Milwaukee. I think you've just kind of bounced off of there, and is a member of the Wisconsin Center District Board of Directors. Omar was one of the leading advocates to get approval for the long-awaited expansion of the convention center, which will greatly benefit hotels, restaurants, and retailers throughout southeastern Wisconsin. Omar strongly believes in giving back to the community and is chairman of the Milwaukee Kitchen Cabinet, which has put together the 3 Days of Christmas initiative for the past several years to provide holiday meals and gifts for nonprofit groups. Omar and his wife Connie have been leaders in raising money for the area's nonprofits and community groups, serving as co-chairs for several record-breaking fundraisers, including the Harry and Rose Sampson Jewish Community Center's Kids Share and Sharp Literacy's A Novel Event. Omar, I start every show with the same simple question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
Yeah, I grew up here in Milwaukee, and then when I was a teenager, late teens, I moved out to Los Angeles and chased some dreams out there. And, went out and met the Gracie family while I was going to school and wanted to become a professional fighter. MMA was just starting back then, but it just became my life. It was all I wanted to do. And so I didn't finish too many years of school out there, dedicated my life to training and fighting and whatnot. And then realized, well, I only have 2 years of education and it's 8 years later. You really can't make that much money fighting. And in the process, I had a broken hand, broke my legs before, my ribs, my teeth. So I just said, maybe I better choose another career path. So I came back to Milwaukee, finished my education here at UW or at Cardinal Stritch University, and really didn't know what I wanted to do in the time frame of going to college. I actually worked the doors at different bars and nightclubs, being a fighter. I was a smaller guy though, about 170 pounds. And I never really believed in being that bouncer to hurt people. I knew how to talk to people. And for me, I took it an opportunity not to show that I have skills. I took it as an opportunity to meet a ton of people. And so I was the guy that just, apologized that they couldn't come in for whatever reason and tried to build relationships. And it was really a great start to meet a ton of people. From doorman there, finished college, worked in a few corporate jobs, sales, did really well at it. But then I just realized that I just really didn't want to work for people for whatever reason. Being in the corporate culture, I felt that I was, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I felt like I worked for people that like shouldn't be in that position. And just a lot of the corporate rules and laws. I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, that's as you are, like you just, you have to go, right? And so you have to go outside the boundaries and just go. And so had an opportunity to open my first restaurant at the time. It's called Sakatumi. And it was a great success. I mean, it was long and drawn out, but it was highly anticipated. I had met so many people and it just blew up. So, I mean, it was the only restaurant, that like I would quote people 2 hours on a Tuesday and they would wait in Milwaukee. I mean, so it was such a great success. And I met so many great people out of that. That partnership didn't fully work out for other reasons. And so I went on to open a restaurant called Carnevor, which is still here today, 15 years later. And it was funny because I figured I knew all these people. I felt like everyone loved me and I felt like everyone would just move over customer base to Carnevor. And I opened that restaurant and high-end steaks, as expensive, if not more than everyone else. Everyone's like, you can't go after Johnny V. He's got that market cornered and whatnot. I would say the first 2 months it was okay, but we weren't really paying the bills and we had to go into overdraft. And I just couldn't figure out like why a lot of these people didn't come see me. And they would, like some of them would come, but it's like the friendships, people would come, but it's also a lot of that crowd wanted to get to see me, maybe a little sake. They weren't the big steak, big cab drinkers, right? So it was a totally different crowd. I kept all those relationships and they would come and they would, here and there, but I just remember it was like it was a Monday night. It was snowing outside. We had 4 tables. I had overdrafted like 2-3 times. And I felt like I was doing everything right. And my wife was sitting with me at the bar and I turned to her and I said, I think I just screwed us. And we just had not even a 1-year-old at the time. And I started crying and I'm like, oh my God, why would you say that? Right. I never really take stress home anymore, even if I feel like I have a gun to my head.
Yeah.
But I just remember that it was, I can't remember the exact date, but it was in December. Dennis Ghetto, who's a food critic, God bless his soul at the time, came in and reviewed us and said, I bit into the steak was probably one of the best steaks, if not the best steak I ever ate in my life. And so I didn't know at the time what that meant, what a review would do. And literally the day that it came out, to the phone started blowing up. And it was really, I look back from that point on out, the restaurant was busy ever since. And so Carnevor has just become the place to be, for a lot of people. And so whether it's you're a plumber and you saved up money and you want to have a great dinner with your wife or your family, we want them to feel special. If you're a superstar athlete, if you're doing a business closing, if you're a CEO, if you're a millennial, I mean, it's really a place for everybody because we don't have white tablecloths, play upbeat music. You can come in here with a baseball hat and a t-shirt, or you can wear a suit. And I don't want to be pretentious. I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. That's the whole goal of Carnevor, is that you're getting the elements of fine dining, service, and food, but I want everyone to feel comfortable. I don't, as many people as I know with a lot of money in the hoity-toity, like for me, myself, I don't want to be in those environments as much. So I think we really hit it in the head and nailed it out of the park here with Carnevor. And so today, we opened several restaurants since, closed several restaurants, and about 2-3 years ago sold out of the restaurant group, and I only have Carnevor. And then from there opened up and are doing developments and consulting at different types of companies. But Carnevor today is just still the crown jewel for me, and it's the pride and joy of still coming here almost every night and meeting new people and taking care of people, the hospitality, making new relationships. It's where we do our political deals. It's where we raise our money. It's where our consulting clients take us here to dinner. So it's like kind of a double tip. But it's just a place to be so proud of, that almost everything gets done here. And I know that people trust us. Like, people trust us because if you're a guy that saved up money and you can only come in once a year, I'm going to make sure that you have a great experience. Or if you're the MVP of whatever team, you're going to get a great experience too. And you're going to be trusted that we're not going to have a bunch of people bothering them as well. So it's kind of been the heart and soul of everything that I do, and continues to be the heart and soul of everything that I do.
And well, I'll wait on that one and I'll ask you first. This environment that you say, you can come in with a hat or t-shirt, or you can come in with a suit and it's all cool, it's all good. Has that been that way from the beginning, or is that something that sort of evolved over time? So I'm thinking like maybe at the beginning you were competing with other established steakhouses that maybe had a different vibe to them and people expected that kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, we broke the mold. I mean, it's like, every steakhouse that's opened up since us here in Wisconsin and even in other states, I know what they're doing. They bring the whole team in, they eat 5 times, they order everything off the menu, they try to, it's very authentic here. And so, no, we were like this from the beginning. From day one, we knew who we are and who we were going to be. And so we didn't want any guesswork as to who we are. I mean, Carnevor pretty much clearly tells you what we are. And then when you come in, it's kind of a nice, dimly lit, modern type design that's, makes you feel really comfortable, right? It's kind of back in the carnivorous era. In the dining room, we have ribs that go over the main dining room that come out of the wall. So you're actually eating in the belly of a carnivorous creature. But we were like that from day one. Somebody walked in with a t-shirt. I walked up, shook their hand. Hey, great to see you. Made them feel welcome. We wanted everybody to feel welcome here, And so if you want to come in a suit, business wear, great. We get those all the time. But if you want to come after a ball game, before a ball game and dress down, listen, we're here to take care of everybody.
And let me go back to, you mentioned moving to LA when you were 18 or a teenager?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah. So what was it for the fighting that you moved there, Omar? Or was there another reason that you went there?
That was one of the main reasons I wanted to go learn from the family, but also I just wasn't hanging out with the right people, when I first started college here and when I was 18, and I just wanted to change. I needed to change a pace, and I wanted to go out and find myself a little bit. So yeah, I certainly don't regret those years. I was a college graduate when I was like 27. But I learned a lot out there, and I take that mentality of the competition and the fighting with me in everything that I do. It's a different fight these days, but I take that spirit with me with whatever I do. So I like, my kids are all athletic and they're all excel at sports, and I know that that's going to stay with them, that competitiveness with whatever they do.
And were you fighting before you went to LA, or were you?
It's funny. I love my parents. They never let me get into the martial arts. I did a little bit of wrestling, but I would, from 6 years old, asked if I could train in martial arts and karate and boxing. They never let me do it. They didn't want me to do it. So I knew if I could move out of the state when I became an adult, I could go do that.
Got it. And Gracie, that name is, I mean, I think it's synonymous with MMA, but also jiu-jitsu as well, right?
Yeah, they're the creators of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and
Okay.
basically the creators of MMA that's existed 70 years in Brazil. And then they brought it here to the States. And so it's a worldwide sport now, and it's thanks to that family.
So you mentioned some of the injuries you had while you were fighting. I'm wondering, so here's a kid that moves from Milwaukee, never did any martial arts, and you get in you start training with and get in the ring with guys that I'm assuming had been doing this for, a long time. And, I'm kind of thinking about, I played football, and I'm just kind of thinking about how you rise up and you're like star of the 8th grade team, and you get to the to high school, right? And all of a sudden these guys that are much bigger, much faster, much more experienced are hitting you and doing things to you in a way that it's new and it's not always exciting. Well,
I mean, I didn't just step into the cage or ring before I was,
okay.
I was ready, I felt, but most of my injuries came from training. All your injuries really come from training. I mean, that's when you're really hurting yourself. You have hundreds and hundreds of hours of training, and then you might have a 4-minute fight or 10-minute fight or 8-minute fight, so a lot of it comes from the training.
Okay. And the Sakatumi, when you started that, how did you get it off the ground? Can you can you walk me through a little bit of the weeds on that? Because I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I did it with a non-blood relative uncle. Neither of us were in the restaurant business. He was a brilliant man in his own right. But we didn't have restaurant experience. I worked in restaurants in California, but I never owned one. I was never a chef. I have a gift with people. I think that's my superpower. If we all have one, right? And so it was rough. I mean, hired some great chefs, hired some good staff, inspired them, felt like we led them in the right direction, believing in this place. I wish I had the knowledge that I had now, but it was very, very, very successful. Learned a lot throughout the process, but I spent a lot of time traveling and honestly just getting like some of the best recipes with the team in other cities, and tried a lot of food before we really came up with a comprehensive menu. But our menu was phenomenal out of the gates. And I found a Japanese sushi chef out of Chicago that I recruited to come here. Found another one, I can't remember what city he came from, but he was from Japan. And we really hit the ground. I mean, it was impressive for being the first restaurant. Now, did we learn a lot through the process? Yeah, but one thing that we do, and one thing that I've always done is I always love to take care of people. And one by one, that's how we built our group. And it was one customer by one friend by one. And I have a lot of great friends and relationships because of this business. But I'll give you an example. There was an individual who came in with a Packer jacket, messy hair, kind of dirty t-shirt. And, he sat by himself, sat in the service section. One of the servers moved him over to the next section. And so he got upset about it. And he said something under his breath. And I heard what he said. So I asked the server, I said, why'd you move him? He said, well, I want to give that server doesn't have a table yet. I wanted to give him the table. The fact is, he didn't want a single person. He wanted a four top. He wanted 4 people on that table. So it was selfish to do, right? And I almost fired. I was so upset at him. I almost fired him. But he ended up being a great waiter, and just got to understand that that's not going to work, right? So I remember talking to this guy for a while. I sat down next to him and I said, hey, I apologize. I said, let's talk, and I'm sorry that happened. How are you doing? And so we started talking a long time, and I realized he knew so much about food. And it just became like a half an hour conversation with him. And afterwards, I gave him the tour of the whole place. And he was really taken back. We bonded, and he was just like, wow, you spent a lot of time with me. You gave me a whole tour. You made me feel so special. And I'm like, no, yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. I didn't think much of it. And he said, I'm not supposed to let you know this, but I mean, I'm the local food critic. The food critic for the Shepherd Express at the time.
Oh,
and that was the second week we opened. And think about, had I not seen that, or that server would have done that to him, I might not be here talking to you today.
yeah, right.
It's just crazy. So I pride ourselves on really taking care of the guests. I mean, we go the extra mile when we build that relationship. It's really hard to take that relationship from us.
And how do you, with all the, I guess I'd say, notable people who come into Carnevor now, and probably most of your restaurants over the period of time, how do you, I would think that most people would gravitate towards the people who were, let's say famous, and maybe shy, and maybe, that takes over, as opposed to the person like this person, for example, who just, was as far as you knew, was just a normal person there for a meal. How have you learned to balance that? Because I think there's a good, I'll be interested in what you say, but I think whatever you say is going to apply to every business that grows and becomes more notable and more, with more clients at higher levels and that kind of thing. I'm curious how you and your team have sort of maintained that, so that you are just nice to everybody.
I don't want to say it's intentional. I mean, the culture here is that we take care of people. Yeah. I mean, obviously it matters. I mean, if Giannis comes in here, right, I can't put him next to everybody else. So we just have to be smart about those types of things. But I mean, I think I've earned and built a reputation of just building relationships and taking care of everybody across all levels. I never look to seek out all the athletes and the CEOs. That was never my goal, but They just started coming in. We know how to take care of them. We know how to respect them. We don't ask them for a lot. And, they really respect that. And once you get in the beginning, then I started meeting some of the athletes, and I thought to myself, well, this is really cool. But I didn't live to be like, oh, I have to meet athletes or CEOs. And then when you start building relationships and real friendships, and you're really close with some of them, then the other ones want to get to know you. And it is sort of just spirals like that. And so I think we just authentically know how to take care of people. And, I never thought of it like, oh, I have to go after this type or that type. I think if you're authentic, and you know how to take care of people in your hospital, all the relationships will come.
And were you, the first time or the first few times that these, famous people walked in, were you excited by that, intimidated by that?
I was never intimidated. I mean,
okay,
I don't,
so it's just
I just, yeah. And I think had dinner with Yelly here 2 days ago. And when I sit next to him, I look at him as a friend. I don't look at him as a baseball star.
Yeah.
I never have. I just, and to tell you the truth, if he wasn't nice to my staff or he wasn't a respectful person, I wouldn't have dinner with him. And I wouldn't be a friend with him. And so those are the guys that I bond with him. He's just such a great, great person. And so, we can talk about a lot we're in business together and we can talk about a lot of things. I ask him a lot of baseball questions to understand it a little bit better, but I just don't, I'm never really intimidated to meet anybody, to tell you the truth. I guess this sounds bad, but I'm a big believer in myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know, not many people intimidate me. I just love the opportunity to meet people and get to know them and figure out how we can help them, vice versa then, and have a real true friendship.
Yeah. That's interesting because I don't feel like I'm certainly less now, but I don't feel like I'm intimidated to meet people. But sometimes I ask myself the question, why would that person want to meet me? I sort of flip it around and I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, so I'm not intimidated to meet them, but I also think like, oh, they have all the people coming up to them all the time, trying to meet them. And, what do I have to offer sort of thing.
Well, I can tell you this. I mean, they lead a tough lifestyle, and they do have people constantly, coming towards them. Sometimes it's the day that they're in the mood for it. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes if they're going through growth, I mean, they're humans, right?
Yeah,
And so
sure.
blindly walking up to a star of some sort. Yeah. I mean, it's, you never know what you're going to get. And I understand I've been at dinner with some of these guys, some of the bigger name guys, and, not in my restaurant, but like literally 16 times people walked up to dinner. I'm so sorry, but hey, can we talk to you? Like, so after a while, like if I was a superstar and famous, I'd be kind of rude. So I'll just be honest, just because I was exposed to it with these guys, that I'd just be like, look, I'm eating with my family. Like, can you respect that? Right. And so I get it. I mean, walking up to one of these people blindly, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were saying that, I was thinking, put yourself in their shoes. You're just a normal person, whatever, and you're having dinner and 16 people come up to you during dinner and ask you this or ask you that. It's like, yeah, okay, I need some space.
Yeah, and so I get it, and they're so guarded because they always think that people want something from them, and so there's so many great, genuine, people of high stature, and I think if you catch them at the right time, in the right moment, the conversation's right, but it's a lot of the times it's the same thing.
Yeah. So you mentioned too that you had sold out of the other Surge, or the other restaurants that were affiliated with you, and I know throughout your career, Carnevor's been sort of that, I don't know, I call it the stable, maybe the home run, and you've had from the first one you mentioned, you've had a lot of other restaurant experiences. And I guess I want to understand what makes, first of all, you read about how hard the restaurant business is, but I don't get to talk to too many people like you who actually have lived it and can tell me, is it just that it's hard, or are there all these other factors? And then how do you keep going and reinventing concepts and stuff? And one thing I always wonder about too, like, when you shut down a restaurant and you redo it into another restaurant, you have no income coming in all this time. And I'm always wondering, like, how do you, like, I think about my own, so if I shut down a location of my own business, right? One of the locations, I wouldn't be happy. I'd be suffering.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, a lot of the times it's like, if you run a restaurant, right, you'll have some reserves. And knowing that, a lot of the times if we were to pull the plug, it's because it's just not making money anymore after so many years and had a decent run. And so hopefully you had some reserves there, right? And then you can kind of redo the whole concept. And when you do a brand new concept, the sales are going to be much higher and everyone's going to come again. A lot of the times it's just going out and getting a loan to reconcept everything for a new concept. And it's just part of the game.
And have you been able to, I don't know, have you been able to figure out, like with Carnevor that's had this, been so long standing, and the other ones that have maybe been shorter, what it is, like, what is that secret? What is it that keeps people coming back to the same place and not getting tired of it or not running down or whatever?
Well, Carnevor is 1 in a million. I mean, each year the numbers keep getting better after 15 years. And so it comes down to the staff. I have a phenomenal manager, Mark Eminger. I have a phenomenal staff. It's a concept where we know exactly who we are, and we've built a strong brand and relationship throughout the city that we have so many regulars here. And it just keeps growing, I mean, we're known throughout the NBA, we're known throughout MLB, we're known throughout, the football world, but, and so it's like, it just keeps growing as the more, as the word continues to get out. And so every time, every weekend, we have somebody new, even after 15 years, new customers that come in here. And as soon as they come in, they're blown away, and they'll go out and tell 20 people, right? And so that's kind of what we've done to grow it. It's consistent. Every time you come to Carnevor, I mean, you might get an overcooked steak here and there, but we'll replace that right away. Apologize, maybe bring a free dessert, but it's the consistency and the high level service that just keep people coming back.
All right, one more.
And for me
question.
personally, I just had my other partner wanted to grow so fast. We didn't have the infrastructure to grow. I killed myself trying to do all these other concepts. And when you start growing, you lose that quality and you lose that attention to detail. And now that I'm just back down to Carnevor, like, not saying it's because of me, but it has, it's something to do with me. Our numbers are at an all-time high because I can focus on the guests. I can focus on one place and not be drawn a million different directions. And some of our concepts just weren't good, to be honest with you. I've failed a lot. I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot from those. And honestly, it's a brutally tough business. Right now, we're doing as much, if not more, in 5 days a week than I was doing 7 weeks pre-pandemic. We are through the roof busy here, but the food cost is up. Steaks are up 62%. Yeah. I mean, it's just insane. Supply chain is out of control. The labor issues, the shortage is insanity. So now that business is back, we're dealing with other factors that are not allowing us to make the bottom line that we can make. Good news is I have other sources of income, and all my staff are making a lot of money in tips. We're paying the back of the house a lot more, and that makes me happy. It's easier to manage. It's easier to operate, and Carnevor serves other purposes than just making money. But those food costs, my food costs went over my team every week. My ribeye cost is 95%. 95%. Think about that. That leaves me 5% left to cover the rent, it's crazy. Now, that's not our overall food cost, but that's what our ribeye cost is. And I can't charge $150 for that ribeye to make it a 35% cost or whatever it's going to be. You know what I mean? You just can't. And so, we got our challenges. We had to work through the pandemic. Now we have to work through this. Hopefully food costs can drop and the labor shortage resolves itself in the next year. And, our industry is hurting really badly right now.
Yeah. And how long were you closed for during the pandemic? Like closed?
9 months, something, 6 to 9. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, let's move away from restaurants and move into your work in the community, because, as I mentioned in your bio, you were board chair at Visit Milwaukee, which is the, what do you call that? That's basically the tourism. Tourism group for Milwaukee.
So Visit Milwaukee is basically the tourism body that will promote the city, outbound, drive tourism from a lot of different perspectives, partner with all the festivals. And really the main job is to put beds in heads, book conventions and put beds in heads.
Okay. So that work and the work with the convention center board is really aligned pretty closely then.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And
well,
go ahead.
I mean, when I got there 10 years ago, I joined the board. 5 years, some Braves players want some reservations. 5 years ago, 5 years ago, I became the board chair. They asked me to become the board chair, and I took the position. And I stepped in a little bit of a mess, to be honest with you. And I'm not one of those guys. I've read about you. I think I have a pretty good idea of what you represent and who you are. You're not one of those guys that just dilly-dallies into things. You go all in, right? And I'm the same way. If I'm in board chair, I want to make a huge difference. I want my stamp and legacy piece or whatever it's going to be. And so I almost stepped down in a week because I realized that there were so many things happening within that organization I didn't agree with. The leadership was lacking. There were people not being treated properly. They weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, frankly speaking, and I know it sounds bad. So I spent a lot of time really digging in deeper than I should. And then the same thing with the WCD. I went and got to know the Wisconsin Center District, and two, I mean, sorry to say, they were falling short too. And so I reorganized Visit Milwaukee, did a national search, and actually ended up finding somebody here, Peggy Williams-Smith, who was running all the restaurant division of Marcus, but she is a dynamo. Now, did she have a lot of the tourism things? Yeah, through the hospitality, but not national connections. And, you know, when it comes to that industry, but I knew who she was as a person. I knew she's a knock down doors kind of woman. I interviewed people from around the country, and I knew, and I told the group who was with my search committee, I said, she's the one. She's not just connected here, she's respected. I know she's a grinder. She's going to work hard, and she'll learn. Smart people can learn. And she is phenomenal. She's going to take that. So if we together then kind of reorganized, I started letting a lot of management go before, and then more management got let go after she left. And now she's built a team that's really set up for success. There were things happening there that were just, and I won't talk about all of them, but had to get some lawyers involved. And I tossed and turned for like 6 months, and how 2 women were being treated in general. So did that. Help set everything up, Visit for Success. Peggy is going to run with it. Then worked with the DOA secretary and the gov, worked with my friend Jim Cantor, who's chair over there, John Yinling, who's a consultant. And we formed a national search committee, and we brought in a guy named Marty Brooks to run the Wisconsin Center District. I knew he was the guy right away. I mean, the first interview, I just remember thinking to myself, how do we hire this guy, even though legally we can't before he leaves? And I remember calling him on a cell phone every day. I wasn't supposed to. And he turns to his wife. He's like, who the heck is this Omar? He keeps calling me on my cell phone. Like, I knew we had to get him. And so we finally found a way after a couple months, and we brought him in. This is the guy who ran Madison Square Garden. And the former CEO is a great guy, nice guy. He really liked him a lot, Russ, but he was kind of the head of security, and then he was put into that position. He wasn't qualified to really run the whole shebang. And I feel bad saying that, because he was a great, great, great guy, but he wasn't. And I had to do what's right for that organization, what's right for the city. So now, and these 2 organizations between Visit and WCD, they weren't getting along. There was all this finger pointing going on, and nothing, and they weren't doing what they're supposed to do. And so now we have Peggy, she built a whole team. We have Marty, he's built his team. We're going to crush it with a new convention center completion. We are going to get so many more conventions here once this pandemic is done, and bring hundreds of thousands of visitors here to pay for our infrastructure. So during that 5-year period, I mean, it was my main legacy piece that I wanted to work on is brought in like Steve Boss from MMAC. He went on to the Road Builders, brought in Buddy Julius from the firm LLC. We hired him, worked the path. Thanks, Peter Fagan. There were so many people that joined us to take trips to Madison to get this done. And, in 20 years, nobody did it. And so we did it. I mean, we got moral obligation from the state. Robin Voss, Jeff Fitzgerald, got 22 million from 22.5 million from them, so we could bond out for the convention center. Groundbreaking's coming up this month. We're going to do a $425 million completion of that convention center, and there's going to be billions of dollars of ancillary development happening since then. I even tell you, like, the Bucks were like, "Whoa, what? We didn't think you'd get that done." Now they're building a Bucks hotel, but they needed to see that we can get that done. I think 4th and Wisconsin is going to be a hotel too for conventioneers. As you're seeing, our city's not really growing, and people don't want to talk about that. We don't have population growth. We've had failed leadership here, stagnant leadership, and now is the time when the mayor is going to be stepping up to get a real bold leader to move this city forward, that has city leaders behind him to grow. But this convention center is going to help, because we're going to bring hundreds of thousands of more people here now, and I think people are going to fall in love with the city. And when they do, we can have more and more people move here, because we need growth.
And before I get to that, I do want to talk about the growth thing, but what was the hardest or the most difficult or the most challenging thing about getting the convention center expansion approved and done?
It was like a 4-year path, and it sat stagnant for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so nobody thought that it could get done. And so we had to work a real path, because convention center is like, okay, Five-Star Forum is all the shiny bells and whistles, and Giannis and the team. people understand what that is. The general public here does not really understand what a convention center is.
Yeah.
So it's not like we could go out on this campaign and show all these pretty pictures and like, we had to really, really work kind of a covert behind the scenes operations with all sides of the political aisle to get this done. And in these days, it's just not as easy. I mean, it's like we finally got the state to come around to understand that the city's not going to give us any money. We're not going to get much help there. The county, I will say, Chris Abele and Teague were there at the time, and those are two of the smartest guys I know. They helped us a lot. A lot of the funding models, they really spent time and energy to work on it. But it's like, we ran into like, okay, guys, Speaker Voss, Jeff Fitzgerald, we don't have any money from the city. We're going to need you guys to fund this for Milwaukee. And they don't want to do it because, if the mayor goes out and blasts them publicly, who wants to help them, right? So it's like, whoever the new mayor is, you've got to reach across the political aisle. You're not going to agree on everything, but we've got to take the things we agree on and move it forward. Let's be adults. Not let it, these stupid egos get in the way and blast each other. It goes to both sides. But I will tell you this, a lot of people don't like Speaker Voss. He's way more pragmatic than you think. And he's a good guy, and he's the reason we got this done. So it's like, hey, we finally got them to come around. A deal got killed like 6 times. Hey, the city's not going to give any money. I'm sorry. All right. But this is good. It's a state-run facility. A lot of the money flows up to the state. This is going to be good for everybody with supply with data and facts, employment, all that type of stuff, because what you've got to give these people facts and data. And we were able to do that, and provide what the ROI is and all that. And that's why they did it. But I just remember it was like a month before we were trying to go out and get this done. And we said the city doesn't have any money. Sorry, tried to talk to the mayor. The mayor was working with us, trying to do some things, but they just doesn't have much money. And so I just remember Monday morning, I was getting calls. Are you effing kidding me? And I'm like, what? And they said there was an article that came up. The mayor said he found like $28 million for a tip for the streetcar. And
man.
Oh my God. Not to say the streetcars are a good or bad thing, but I thought you didn't have any money and that blindsided us. So I can't even tell you all the things. And like, I thought the deal died 6 times. One of the last ones, there was, I shouldn't tell you this, but a woman that we worked the path with, she pretty much forgot everything that she was supposed to do, a legislator, and almost killed the deal. And that was after 4 years of work too. So it almost didn't get done. And I would have died. That was 4 years of Madison trips, of dinners at Carnevor, of, really working with all sides, bringing in a lot of people to put effort to get this done. If that wouldn't have worked, that would have deflated me.
So now that it's done, so now that it's done, groundbreaking coming up, Visit Milwaukee is, functioning at a high level. You said, you think that this combination is going to allow Milwaukee to crush it. What do you see for you? What does crushing it mean, Omar? So we were turning down a lot of conventions that we couldn't even take before. Our convention center is in the bottom 2/3 percentile. Once we actually build this, maybe modern convention center, more meeting space, more outdoor space, we're going to win so many more conventions. We couldn't take a lot of those conventions before. And a new convention center means we win a lot more business. So what does that mean? The hotels are thriving, the restaurants are thriving, the retail's thriving, transportation, a lot more people outbound coming here, paying for infrastructure. All that tax base from the hotels, a lot of it from restaurants, those are from outsiders. Yeah.
And that's what we want. Well, in addition to that, we need population growth, but this helps a great deal. It's critical.
And did you encounter when you first, I was thinking this is to me is Milwaukee. So you tell me whether you encountered this or not, but people look at the convention center that we have now and they go, what's wrong with it? It's pretty good, right? That people maybe that don't understand was that a challenge that you had to sort of get past as well early on?
A little bit. It's old dated, it's outdated. And I wouldn't expect 99.9% of people to really understand that. If I wasn't in the business I was in, even if I just worked downtown, I wouldn't understand.
Right.
But the carpet's there from years ago. It's so outdated. And we're just getting out, the competitors in the tier 2 cities they're updating it, they're investing it because they understand the importance of it. So, it's just a lot of revenue that comes in here to the city, flows up to the state, and it's good for all. And so I wouldn't expect people to understand that, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
But no, it's certainly, I think a lot of people that work there and a lot of people in the know knows that we weren't as competitive, and we definitely need to update it and expand it. $425 million expansion.
So you mentioned the mayor, and the mayor is it's been slated to be the ambassador to Luxembourg, I think.
I think it's going to happen next year. Yeah.
Under the Biden administration. So we're gonna have a new mayor, at least. Well, we're gonna have a new mayor, interim mayor, and then we're going to have another election for mayor in Milwaukee. You mentioned a couple of the attributes that you think we need in a mayor. Who's the ideal? I'm not asking you to tell me who you think the ideal candidate is, unless you want to. I'm more interested in, since you have this great perspective, not only as a business owner and an entrepreneur, but also being involved in these organizations that are designed to promote Milwaukee and the economic activity in Milwaukee. What are the characteristics of the next mayor of Milwaukee that you think are absolutely critical?
For me, it's not somebody that's indebted to everybody. For me, it's somebody that has a strong, bold vision for our city. Somebody that understands how to navigate the political landscape, but at the same time, really understand the importance of all areas of our city. That's going to be a real leader, take hard stances, and not be afraid to piss people off. I mean, a real leader is going to be somebody that just cheers for the city, is the CEO of our city, that's going to go out and win business for us. I remember from my business in Chicago, my brother-in-law was the chief of staff for Rahm Emanuel. And I'm like, hey, can you give me a meeting with him? It was Tuesday. Can you give me a meeting with him Thursday? And he starts laughing at me. He's like, yes, I'm his chief of staff, but no, you're not getting a meeting with him Thursday. Okay, next week, he said, Omar, let me show you a schedule. He was getting up at 4:30, driving himself 2 days in a row throughout Indiana, pitching companies himself to move to Chicago. I mean, that is a bold leader that's going out and selling it himself. We need somebody that's passionate. We need somebody that's like not going to be status quo and want to climb the ranks or do things to keep his job. The city deserves so much more than that. The city deserves a real CEO that is bold and visionary, that's going to make some real hard decisions, because we've got a lot of problems here. We've got a lot of issues, and there's a lot of stuff to fix. And leaders here are willing to help. There's so many of us, I would say there's so many of us, but there's quite a few of us that are willing to pitch in, roll our sleeves up to get things done. And that's where you want to lean on your business leaders to really help drive things forward instead of go around to get things done. And so that's my opinion. As you can see, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah. What about you? Political ambitions for you at some point in your life?
My ambitions right now, I have 3 kids in college,
Yeah.
one in middle school and 2 in high school. And I have projects over the next 5 years that I'm gonna have to give my life up to. Who knows after that? I don't know. I don't ever want to say no. I'm very political myself right now. And I'm more than just behind the scenes political. I mean, I'm on the news every week, every other week. I like standing up for things that I believe in. But I don't know. I mean, who wants to be a politician anymore these days? Yeah. Why would you want to take all those bullets? 50% of the people are going to hate you. Are you really going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish? I don't know. I think you'd be crazy to want that job.
I think I agree with you. I think you have to be a little crazy, but I think you have to be a little crazy to do a lot of great things.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
And no matter what you're going to do, whether it's politics or anything else, if you're crazy about it, you're passionate about it, and you actually are making things happen, you're always going to have people who want to support you, and you're always going to have people who want to shoot some arrows at you, right? That's just
trust me. I mean, I used to bother me, but I took a lot of bullets throughout the pandemic, and man, I just it's like a lot of things just didn't make sense to me, and so I'm going to stand up for business. I understand that this is a real thing. I got COVID myself, but we're just gonna have to learn to coexist with it and be smart. I think that people are looking at one side. You're not looking at the other side. I mean, how many people killed themselves and how many people lost their family businesses? They can't support their kids. Right. I mean, there's got to be a balance here. This isn't just one-sided. So yeah, I took a lot of bullets throughout all that, but I knew I was doing the right thing. I was standing up for the right thing, and so it didn't bother me. I would tell you, seems like 9 out of 10 support me for that versus the 1 out of 10 that wants to say bad things. So I'm good.
Okay, cool. So these things that you're going to commit the next 5 years of your life to, besides your kids getting through college, which is a huge commitment for anybody.
Yeah.
What are they? I mean, you've got these new businesses. You know, well, I'm not sure how new they
Yeah, I
are,
mean, a
but
lot,
O&B I think is new.
I would say consulting's gotten quite busy, which is great. Carnivore I stick to, but it's more of the developments. I've been able to partner with Josh Kriznak and Tony, and so we're partners in the food hall, which is going to be a massive project for downtown. 4 years in the works. I'm a small equity partner in some of the real estate as well, and so I really enjoy that part though, because I bring hospitality to all of this, and so it's like touring tenants. A lot of the times that it's tenant from the suburbs, wherever they are, feels great because every time it's a blind tour, I have a relationship with somebody there. And we know how to get through, and we know how to, if we really are trying to fight for their business, we're doing things that I believe other developers aren't doing. But the hospitality piece of it is so critical and makes it so much better in my eyes. So we're leasing up there at the Avenue. It feels great. And I think the food hall is going to change Milwaukee. I mean, you spent years of traveling with the team, 70 food halls around the country, behind the scenes tours, some of the best ones, adult gaming facilities. So we're adding in, the best elements of all that we've seen, from great culinary, all local, great chefs, 50-person massive central bar, to shuffleboard courts, to top golf, to selfie museum, to snook ball. It's going to be a work, live, place area. And like, nobody's going to ever seen anything like this. Maybe even nationally, because we spent so much time researching. It was insane. And the product we're going to put out is going to be great. Phase 1 coming up here in a month or so. But then really it's 3 more vendors by December, and by February we're going to have 19 vendors. And that's when it might make February, March, April is when we do our big kickoff. We'll silently open next month, but it's going to be something that changes Milwaukee, because you can come there as a millennial, get a craft beer, and work on your laptop. You can bring your family there. They can do several different things. You can host athletes there. You can host CEOs there. You can host corporate there. There's something for everybody. And it's going to be the place that, like, a lot of people don't want to go to nightclubs or bars, but there's something to do here where you can come and meet people and gather, like a living room of downtown. And downtown really doesn't have that. And so I think that we're going to change Milwaukee. I wholeheartedly believe that. We're in the center of downtown. And that's a project that's so desperately needed to be turned around. And again, when I say that, like, Josh and Tony are the visionaries behind it. Chris Socha, the architect's a visionary. I'm just the guy that a lot of people know and get credit for, but I'm not the brains behind this operation. I'll promise you that.
Right. And this is happening at the old, what most people in Milwaukee know as the Grand Avenue Mall.
Yeah, the former shops at Grand Avenue.
Former shops at Grand Avenue, and I think people, well, that was sort of written off for a long time, and people probably still have this. People that are listening to this might still have this impression that a food hall is like the food court, at a mall, and this is something
way different. Yeah,
way different.
Way different. All local, all experiential. Food court, national brands, more set up for just lunch. We travel the country, and the whole experiential behind me is, I remember walking into Calvin, Brooklyn. I ordered a sandwich, and I saw them put out a slab of brisket where I could smell it, chop it all in front of me, douse it with barbecue sauce, put it on the bun, put the sides, served it to me. And I was like, wow, I could smell that. I could almost taste it. Yeah. And it was like, wow, the experience behind that and everything else that they were doing. The food court in a mall is, you're going for lunch in and out. There's no experience to it. Nothing wrong with that, but that's what it is. We're gonna blow people away with this.
Who do you think down the road? Is there another city that you think people who come to Milwaukee will be saying, Milwaukee's as good as, whatever? Is there another city that you think people? Yeah.
Well, to go back, like talking about Milwaukee, and I think so 10 years ago, like, people weren't proud to be in Milwaukee. It's just true. Like, they would shit on our city. Young people couldn't wait to move out of here. And so it kills me that we don't have population growth here, because I think we have so much opportunity, right, to recruit companies, and there's so much going on here. But I'm seeing more people wear MKE home shirts. Shout out to Bruce City, who's a great company. They're going to come to the food hall. You're seeing a lot of that branding, and people like Giannis, MVP, best player in the league here now. And winning a championship. It was
Right.
unbelievable. Christian Yelich, 2 years in a row, the best player in baseball. And I think they're going to go deep this year. And, it's just like, there's so much to be proud of. You got the water, you got all these developments. So I think that younger people are really taking pride in here, but I think that we need to do a better job as a city to go out and recruit more companies downtown, but also focus on the population growth. You're seeing a turning of a tide of people being really proud of the city. We didn't quite get to showcase it with the DNC, obviously, but that showed that we're world class. And so I'm so bullish on this city. I really believe in it. And, with the right CEO of the city, we can have a lot of population growth there. It's like Chicago. A lot of people moved out of there. It got really dangerous, and there were a lot of things happening. Minneapolis was in flames. Everyone moved out of there. So where are those young people moving, right? We need to capture that. We need to capture those opportunities.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you on the next CEO for the city. Not just picking up the phone and going out and visiting businesses and getting them to move here, but really promoting the city to young people and making it, really selling it as a destination. Because I'm not from Milwaukee. I've lived here for 30 years, but when I came here, I came from the East Coast and I had no idea where Milwaukee was. And I still think there's a lot of that out there, and it shouldn't be, especially because when you do bring people here, they're like, holy crap, I didn't know you had all this stuff. And now with
people get wowed every day that come to Milwaukee because they didn't realize Milwaukee's a super cool city. There's a lot of great things happening here, and so it's funny. I think Colton Wong just wrote that article. I don't know if you saw that, the secret sauce.
I didn't know.
But he said, he talked about it, the secret sauce of the team, and it was really cool. But he said, before I was playing in Milwaukee, I would come in here. The only thing I knew was kind of cool. And he goes, the steaks were great at Carnevor. That's all I knew, which is so cool, the shout out. But
yeah, right.
I hear people coming in from even Yelich. I remember meeting him when he played for Miami, and he said, yeah, my whole experiences were hotel, Carnevor, and then play. But some of the other players actually go out and experience the city. See, there's a lot of cool stuff here. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of great architecture. You got the water, you got Colorado. I mean, there's just so many good things. It's just, we need to get them here. Once they get them here, they like it.
I love the way, by the way, that you developed your own, your own website as omarmke.com. That is really, really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did that idea come to you right away, or were you going to put your name in there and then do it? Or
no, I just, I don't know I don't know how to describe what I do for a living anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I have a number of companies, and I have companies that aren't even on the website too. And so, I kind of represent myself and try to create, be great to people and create a good brand. And so I put as much as I can into the website, and that way people can go and support or see what's happening with what I'm doing. And so, I've just been doing this a long time now, and have built a lot of great relationships with media and people here. And so very humbling. I freaking love the city, and I love so many people here.
That's really cool on the site too, how you have all the links to, different media stories or whatever about the things you're involved in and stuff. Not many people do that.
Missed the past couple of months. I've got to get that updated.
Okay.
But I want to know, I want people to know what I represent, what I stand for. I mean, I think that's important now too. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be everybody's friend, but I'm getting to a point in my career where I want to do what's right.
Yeah.
Not just to make everybody happy.
So a couple more things before we close here. You've had many different. It sounds like you've had a lot of different partners, some long-standing partners, maybe some that are newer. And I'm always curious because I had partners in my business for a long time too, and you hear a lot of stories about partnerships and such. And I'm wondering what your experience, what your experience was, and what you would advise people when it comes to whether you should have partners, or how you vet partners, or how you collaborate best with partners. All of those things partner related.
I think it's important going in, and I learned this over time, is to understanding what our roles are as partners. So if you know your role and you're performing really well, you can feel pretty secure about it. I have a takeaway from each and every one of my partners I've worked with, and I don't have any bad things to say about anybody. I've learned so much from all of them. And, I would say that my recent partner is a guy named Josh Krisnak from Hempel. I just, I want to stand up and yell that the guy's such a good dude. And he's just, he's not just, okay, so I'll give you a story. I'm not a developer, but I'm starting to be involved in several properties and developments and parking lot things of that nature. And so I'm learning, but I was a restaurant guy this whole time, and restaurant people, I'm way more organized than most. I mean, getting restaurant people to answer an email. I mean, it's a different type of business. We're involved in our businesses, right? And so, but I remember coming to the first few meetings and said, hey, we kept asking around. Everyone's kept saying your name. Would you be, we want to do a food hall here. Would you be a consultant? So I said, I'll take a look at it. So I remember meeting with them and then and thinking to myself, I've opened restaurants. I've never been to a food hall. So I said, look, I'm just being honest. I've never developed a food hall. The infrastructure from this is way different. And it might be over my head. And so they said, okay, well, let's start traveling the country, learning about it, and then we'll take it from there. And so got to be friends with them, learning that they're very genuine people, great intentions. Josh is a guy that partners everybody in all these deals because he leaves money on the table and that's been the success for him. He's not that greedy guy. He leaves money on the table to help people succeed. And I remember he's like, we just really liked each other. And next thing you know, I'm partnering the food hall, and then partnering the real estate, and then partnering all these other deals. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is incredible. But I remember going to some meetings and not really understanding a lot of what they're saying. And so I was in 2 deals with them already. And I went back to my wife and I said, look, this is way over my head. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I can't fake it till I make it. I don't understand anything these guys are saying. And so I remember going to Josh and telling him, look, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. I don't know what the hell all of this stuff means. It's way over my head. Never that great math anyways. And he started laughing and he said, okay, once a week, an hour, come here Tuesday morning, 7 in the morning, 7 to 9, 7 to 8, 7 to 9. I'm going to go over all these funding models with you, and I'm going to explain how it all works. And I said, okay, well, what if I don't understand? He goes, well, then it might be a problem, but I'm going to teach you. So I remember by the 4th class, it started to make sense. He's still way over my head, but I'm starting to understand how these deals work. And a lot of it was just the lingo, the real estate lingo. That's why I didn't understand. I didn't know what a waterfall was. I didn't understand, I didn't know what an 8 cap was, so now even IRRs, all that stuff, now I understand it. And it's much easier to understand. It's just sometimes he'll still lose me because he's been doing this 20 years, but that's the kind of guy, like he's developed $1 billion of real estate. He sat down with me every week to teach me. That's a leader. That's a partner that you want to be a part of. I learn from the guy every day. And my strength is not really understanding the numbers or not driving the numbers or putting together the performance. Like that's what him and his team do. But I bring a lot of relationships to the table, a lot of the political to the table. I'll help with a lot of the capital stacks. I'll help move a lot of things, come with some of the creative ideas. I'll help the hospitality component. We just talked about it last night. We know our roles. We're great each at our roles. And that's why we're an incredible team. I think we're going to go on to do some great things. Again, at this point in my career, I thought I'd be winding down, but I'm so excited to learn that I'm not going to say I've been sleeping, but that's all good.
Yeah. Well, you're the kind of guy that's always going to be winding up, and I don't think I've said this a few times, but I'm 55 now, and I'm at that age where, you begin to be, if you're not careful, you begin to be around people who are starting to wind down. And I don't want to be a person that's winding down. I want to be a person that's winding up, because I feel like, and not that I have any special gifts or talents, but man, I got a long time to live, and living is not winding down. I mean, you can relax and that kind of thing, but living is winding up.
Well, you're an entrepreneur and a very successful entrepreneur, and you achieve that success by hard work. And so you're not one of those guys that's just going to let your brain go down.
Right.
But on the other hand, I mean, I'm younger than you, but if I had your net worth, I might wind down.
Okay. All right, well.
I mean, you got to enjoy life too.
Yeah.
I have a lot of expenses coming up, and people are like, how much are you worth? I'm worth negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to get back to the day before I'm back to zero. I'm broke. Right. People don't know that. People don't understand that.
Yeah, well, they look at you and they think, "Oh, look at you! Look what fell into your lap, right?" And that's very, very common, where people just don't have an appreciation for everything that's going on, behind the scenes. I have a book coming out, and I wrote about some of this stuff. One of these there's this, you know, once you get to a certain level, people, one, assume that you are always there. Two, they assume that wherever you are, you look like you're in a position where you have the world, you know, by the tail or whatever. And they don't know and have appreciation for it, nor do they care really what's going on inside and all the things you have to deal with.
Man, you are dead on. They don't see last night that I got an hour and a half of sleep because I'm tossing and turning because there's so many things to do in such a short time frame that I've got anxiety. They don't see the battles that you have to face. They don't understand any of that, but it's refreshing to talk to somebody that's been there, done that, because we know the battles that we face. And like, you know, man, as an entrepreneur, like I have a lot of really close friends, and I've gotten what Joe Sweeney calls wingmen now, and I have mentors that I go to, and that's what saved my life. But it's still a lonely path as an entrepreneur sometimes, man. You know that, like you second guess yourself, but you know, I love it. I love it. I love what I do.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end this. So I got a lot more questions, but I'm going to end it there because that seems like a natural place.
Awesome.
And you probably need a nap. So.
Well, hey, let's you know what? Let's grab a beer or a bottle of wine sometime. I'd love to get to know you more.
Let's do it. Omar, thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. All right, take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the How Did Happen podcast, where we believe that success doesn't happen unless you make it happen. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. And while you're there, please rate it and leave a comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show, ideas for future guests, or whatever you'd like to share. And of course, you can always find me at MikeMalatesta.com. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to the How Did Happen podcast.